generally talking to organizations, it kind of seems like there's three main approaches they can follow when it comes to their EPM options. One is maybe wait, right? I don't want to necessarily say do nothing, but it's kind of like a sit, pause, wait approach to see maybe that end of life will get extended again, right? Or maybe we can stay with the status quo for a couple more forecast or consolidation cycles. Option number two, we're going to drill into a little bit, but it's also just staying natively with some of the SAP options out there. I think, Scott, you probably have some thoughts there on what's a natural migration path for these different BPC customers, depending on maybe their tech stack. And then, of course, option number three, look to alternatives. So if we drill into the wait option just for 1 second, and we'll go pretty quick on this one, but it's actually not that rare of an approach. I think it's becoming a little bit more rare as time goes on. But this is a set of maybe 4 or 5 questions that I kind of bring up talking to organizations that are kind of leaning towards path number one, which is wait, right? And oftentimes what I hear is, things are kind of working. You know, don't love it, don't hate it, but it is working. We've got a pretty smooth process in place. We think the end of life is going to get delayed again, right? So it's kind of almost like a form of professional procrastination, not to be too harsh. But, maybe these are some topics or questions to ask yourself as an organization to maybe shift that mindset a little bit, right? I won't read through all of them. But, one that I would maybe kind of drill into is kind of that last option, right? Can you afford to wait? And what I mean by afford is not necessarily a financial obligation, right? Maybe there's support or maintenance or, advanced kind of managed services for your BPC implementation today. But even if you don't, the cost of waiting might not necessarily be zero, right? Whether it's ongoing IT costs, higher risk, for instance, especially if we're talking about actual data for financial consolidation purposes in a tool that is, officially set to sunset. And I would say probably the biggest one there is also the opportunity cost, right? Especially as, organizations, sunset different products, chances are they might not necessarily be investing back in those products and investing with new functionality or new capabilities. And I think one that, comes top of mind when it comes to SAP BPC is how do we reconcile the fact that CFOs and finance functions as an organization are trending towards big data to leverage for predictive capabilities and AI, more advanced analytics? And how do we reconcile that need for large volumes of granular data into a solution that maybe was purpose-built, and rightfully so, for summary level information? Look at the middle path, right? Option number two. So if I'm thinking about making an EPM upgrade, and as an organization, we have the direction to stay with SAP branded offerings, right? So I know, Scott, you come from kind of that SAP centric perspective. Maybe you can shed a little bit of light, from your perspective. What are the different options when it comes to, replacing BPC?
Right, and that's always a great question, a loaded question, because the answer, it depends. And so what do I mean by that? What do I mean depends? Well, this slide here, I think, does a nice job illustrating the matrix that we all deal with when we talk BPC replacement. The top box is, in essence, S4, centralized finance scenarios. The bottom box is non-S4 centralized scenarios. And when we talk in the SAP ecosystem, you have some customers that are on S4 and have realized it. You have some customers maybe still on legacy ERP like ECC that have not realized it. And then you have like a mix. Like you may have some customers that have grown by way of acquisition. So maybe they have some ECC, they have partial S4 running over here. And oh, by the way, they have like Oracle or some other miscellaneous ERP in there. And then to further enhance the conversation, we have the idea, is it cloud or on-prem? and are you doing planning and consolidation? So really, we use this matrix to help zero in on, okay, what scenario are you? You know, are you doing planning and consolidation, or are you just focused on one or the other? Is maybe both aspirational, or are you currently doing that today? Are you perhaps on-prem today and moving to the cloud? Do you have a group reporting strategy? And so these are the kind of questions that really come into play to answer the question, what is the best replacement option? And that's something we work with customers on to really zero in on, what when we're replacing BPC, what's the right mix of tools? And I think to bring it back to CCH Tagetik, and one of the reasons that Breakaway really loves the unification of Tagetik and SAP is Tagetik gives you that all-in-one that BPC used to give you. So with the BPC product being deprecated, there was a major gap in the marketplace. You really had to kind of take a point solution approach to really kind of get to that all-in-one. And I really think Tagetik really brings that back into the conversation here.
If you think about it, where the EPM world is today, it's also way beyond planning and consolidation.
Mhm.
Right. So if we kind of stay with our SAP hats on for a second, right? Should we do more than planning and consolidation? Chances are SAP does offer, either natively through its own products or maybe through some of its solution extension products, full coverage for the entire, functional needs when it comes to EPM. So maybe SAC for planning or group reporting for consolidation. There's SAP IBP out there for IBP. I'm sure there's like Nakisa for lease accounting, or maybe Blackline for account reconciliation. So I'm sure SAP in its product catalog has full coverage. The only, kind of question I would be asking, ourselves as an organization is, does this kind of monolithic or point solution approach fit in our IT landscape? And the answer could be yes, right? Or it could be yes, but we need to consider, for instance, the data unification behind the scenes with middleware, different implementation processes and teams and training for the different products to go along with, again, user adoption across a litany of different products. So very well might be that this is the right approach, but there might be some considerations to take into account as well.
I think this illustration is nice because see, you have a series of puzzle pieces, but
Yeah.
the puzzle pieces are not connected. So how, when you have a series of point solutions, as comprehensive as they may be, how do they get connected? And guess what? We all know this from SAP. It's IT glue, IT integration, IT involvement, and IT guided processes at every step of the journey. And while there's a role for IT, that IT glue and integration can also work against the business adaptability and flexibility of some of these tools. So how do we enable the knowledge worker to have the flexibility and adaptability on the what if modeling, on the master data management, and on the input and output capabilities without having IT glue shackle them? And I think that's where CCH Tagetik can also really help here.
Yeah. No, that's a good point again, and just some thoughts to consider, right? Do we have, the right team in place in-house to be able to manage some of these activities behind the scenes? Because it could be a very common use case that a financial consolidation process might need to consolidate their data before we ship it over to the forecasting tool to do some tops-down what-ifing. That might also have an impact on the inventory demand levels, maybe coming from IBP. And then we got to circle everything back up because we need to do carbon emission reporting for ESG purposes. So, just an example that these silos that have historically existed need to be broken down if we really want to go towards that vision that the office of the CFO should really be that business partner to help with strategic decision making by providing insights. And, as Scott mentioned, for that use case to work, we better make sure that we've got a fine-tuned set of IT connections behind the scenes to support finance for that. Last option is also to look at alternatives. And CCH Tagetik is certainly one of those alternatives that many organizations have adopted for their EPM portion of their digital transformation. And I think, and I'm not going to go into all of the details here, but I think at the root of it, a lot of organizations, especially IT organizations, look at CCH Tagetik, powered by SAP HANA, as a natural extension to their SAP centric IT strategy. We're embedded right in HANA. We're certified directly by SAP. Our application runs natively on the HANA in-memory database, which gives us a lot of benefits, especially when we're talking about an SAP-centric IT landscape. But first and foremost, CCH Tagetik, separate organization, separate product from the SAP landscape, but I think that certification to run natively on HANA starts to open the door a little bit where we can almost have a little bit of both option 2 and option 3. Stay SAP-centric, but also have a unified alternative approach to the EPM world. And what I mean by that is, if we talk a little bit about my best guess at maybe what some of the folks that joined today, what their IT landscape looks like, right? Maybe you're kind of on the left-hand side with a snapshot of how we closed December 31st, 2024, right? And your ERP landscape here on the bottom might very well include a little bit of S4, might have a little bit of BW, could have one or many instances of ECC. Maybe we've got some non-SAP ERPs out there, but we've got a bunch of different source systems and ERP tools out there. And as a organizational kind of strategy, we have a vision of migrating all the way through to S/4HANA and having a beautiful, unified, centralized approach to our ERP, leveraging the best-in-class ERP with S/4HANA, and maybe we'll even do a little stopgap, right, to take advantage of kind of some quick wins with central finance, or maybe even kind of condense some of those ECC instances into unified instances. There's technical upgrades out there with BW for HANA or SAP BW on HANA, so some options in there. But then comes kind of the chicken and the egg discussion. Because if we're over here on the left-hand side with our ERP strategy, and we also have a legacy tool in kind of that middle layer for the EPM portion, it's a pretty common discussion. Do we wait to upgrade that middle EPM layer until we're all the way on the right-hand side on the ERP? Meaning, do we wait to update BPC or migrate off of BPC only once we're live on S4? Do we do it before? Do we run it in parallel? And, obviously many schools of thought here, but I think one concept that a lot of organizations today have in mind is the ability to deploy CCH Tagetik running natively on HANA before they go down their migration options on the ERP side. Generally, the benefits of that approach, from our view, one, maybe quicker time to value. We can upgrade our financial consolidation process or introduce modern technologies and approaches to forecasting, or even extend, into profitability analysis or management reporting, or, more analytics-based approach to reporting before having to go through an entire S/4HANA journey. So the time to value, I think, could be a good one.
To watch the full Accelerate Finance Transformation with CCH Tagetik, powered by SAP webinar, simply scan the QR code or visit bit.ly/CCH Tagetik-SAP.